She always smiled, a soft, polite smile, the kind that made people feel safe. In our quiet neighborhood, everyone knew Mrs. Rabia as the sweet lady living in the last house on the street. She'd wave at the kids walking to school, offer tea to new neighbors, and always kept fresh flowers in her window. No one ever suspected a thing. Why would they? Evil doesn't usually wear a kind face, but hers did. I first noticed something strange the day my little sister came home from her house, silent, pale, and holding a porcelain doll she didn't have before. She wouldn't speak a word. That night she woke up screaming, saying, "The lady is in my room." We laughed it off, just a nightmare. Right? But the nightmares kept getting worse. Not just for her, but for other kids on the street too. Everyone was talking about it in hushed voices, but no one dared say anything to Mrs. Rabia. How do you accuse someone who seems so perfect? A few days later, I saw her standing completely still at her window, staring. Not smiling, just staring at our house like she was waiting for something. I tried to tell my parents, but they brushed it off. "She's just lonely," they said. "Don't be silly." Then one boy went missing. He was last seen near her gate, picking up his football, and Mrs. Rabia was smiling again. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong with her. But by the time anyone believed me, it was already too late. I had to find out the truth myself, and what I discovered inside that house changed everything. But before I tell you what I saw, you need to know one thing. Her smile wasn't just fake, it was a warning. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, calm, frozen, almost proud. I kept hearing the stories the kids whispered at school, that Mrs. Rabia used to be a schoolteacher years ago, that something happened to one of her students. No one knew the full story, but everyone agreed on one thing. She changed after that. Quiet, distant, but always smiling. The next morning, I decided to go past her house. Just to look, just to confirm I was overthinking. But as I walked by, I noticed something strange. Her front garden, always clean and neat, now had a corner where the soil looked freshly dug. A small patch, about the size of a shoebox, slightly damp. Something about it felt off, like something was buried there. I quickly moved along, pretending I didn't see anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Later that day, I asked my friend Adil about the boy who went missing. He said his cousin remembered the kid crying the day before, saying he saw something in Mrs. Rabia's window, something that moved when she wasn't even home, a black shape, tall and still, just standing behind the curtains. He told his parents, but they thought he was making it up. The next day, he was gone. People in the neighborhood started getting scared. Parents stopped letting their kids play outside. Lights were off earlier than usual, but still, no one knocked on her door. No one questioned her. The police came once, asked a few things, then left, said there was no evidence. But they didn't look in the garden. They didn't check the window. Then, something happened that made everything worse. One evening, I saw my sister standing at the end of our driveway, staring at Mrs. Rabia's house. Her eyes were open wide, and she was whispering something under her breath. I called out to her, but she didn't respond. When I ran to her, she finally blinked and looked at me like she didn't know where she was. She only said one thing. She called me. After that, I knew I had to go in. I had to find out what was really inside that house, but the moment I stepped through her gate, I realized she had been waiting for me. The gate creaked as I pushed it open, like it hadn't been touched in years. Every step toward the house felt heavier, like something didn't want me there. The air was cold, even though it was a warm evening. I told myself I'd just peek through the window, maybe find something that would explain everything. Prove to someone that I wasn't losing my mind. As I moved closer, I heard faint music, an old, slow melody coming from inside. It wasn't coming from a phone or TV. It sounded like it was playing from a gramophone. Who still uses those? I crouched beside the front window, trying to stay low. The curtains were half open. Inside, everything looked untouched. Dust floated in the air. There were porcelain dolls lined up neatly on a shelf. One of them looked exactly like the doll my sister brought home. My heart started beating faster. Suddenly, I heard a voice, faint, whispering, not from inside the house, but right behind me. "You shouldn't be here." I turned around fast, but no one was there. Just the wind moving the tall grass near the gate. I took a step back, unsure if I should continue. That's when the front door creaked open, on its own, just slightly, like it was inviting me in. My hands were shaking, but I had to know the truth. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first, like something old, rotting but sweet, the kind of smell that doesn't belong in a normal home. I moved carefully through the hallway. The walls were lined with photos, black and white portraits of children, all of them smiling, but something was wrong with their eyes. They were blank, empty, lifeless, as if the smiles were forced. Just as I reached the living room, I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, heavy, like someone dragging their feet. I froze. There shouldn't have been anyone else in the house. But the sound kept getting louder, closer. Then a second subplot unfolded. My phone buzzed. A message from Adil. "Whatever you do, don't go inside her house. I found something. Call me." But it was too late. I was already in. And the footsteps had stopped, right above me. I stared at the ceiling, holding my breath. The floor above creaked softly, but the footsteps had stopped. It felt like the house was holding its breath too, like it knew I was there. My phone was still in my hand, Adil's message glowing on the screen. I wanted to call him, I really did, but some part of me knew if I made a sound, whatever was upstairs would come down, and I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I looked around the room. Everything felt frozen in time. The clock on the wall had stopped ticking, stuck at 3:07. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing against my skin. That same strange melody was still playing, only now it sounded slower, almost distorted. I moved carefully, trying to stay quiet, but the wooden floor groaned beneath me with every step. I was halfway across the room when I saw it. An old door under the staircase, small, almost hidden behind a dusty chair. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years. I reached for the handle, and as soon as I touched it, the music stopped. Complete silence, and then a low whisper, so close it felt like it came from inside my own head. "She sees you." I yanked the door open and slipped inside, closing it behind me. Darkness swallowed everything. I turned on my phone's flashlight, the beam shaking with my hand. The space was narrow, damp, filled with cobwebs. It looked like a storage area, but at the back, there was something that didn't belong. An old trunk, wooden, locked with a rusted latch. Something told me this was what I came for. Before I could reach it, I heard the stairs above groaning again. But this time, it wasn't just footsteps. It sounded like someone dragging something heavy, slowly, deliberately, down the stairs. I crouched low, hiding behind the trunk, heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. The silence returned. Then a knock. One soft knock, then another. Then the doorknob turned. I held my breath, praying it wouldn't open, but it didn't. The knob shook slightly, then let go. Whoever or whatever was out there, it knew I was inside. It was waiting. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Adil. I found an old newspaper article. She was accused of harming a child in 1993. They never found the body. Said she smiled during the whole investigation. I stared at the message, my blood running cold. I turned back to the trunk. I had to know what was inside. My hands trembled as I undid the latch. The air around me felt colder now, like something was moving closer. And just as I began to lift the lid, the door behind me creaked open. She was no longer upstairs. She was here. The door behind me creaked wider, slow and steady, as if whoever was opening it wanted me to hear every second of it. I couldn't turn around. My body was frozen in place, crouched over the half-open trunk. The air in the small space felt thick, colder than before, and it carried something else now, a scent I hadn't noticed until that moment. It was faint but sharp, like burnt flowers mixed with something metallic. My hands trembled as I lifted the trunk's lid completely, half expecting something to jump out. But it wasn't what I expected. Inside the trunk, wrapped in layers of old cloth, were dozens of small items: children's shoes, broken toys, hair clips, and pieces of school uniforms, all different sizes, all old. I stared at them, realization hitting me like a punch to the chest. These weren't just random objects. They were keepsakes, leftovers of lives that had vanished. The children from the photos, the missing boy, maybe even more. Then I saw something else. At the bottom, barely visible beneath a folded red ribbon, was a photo. It was faded and torn at the edges, but I recognized the face instantly. It was my sister. Younger, maybe 4 or 5, but definitely her. And standing behind her in the photo was Mrs. Rabia, not smiling, just staring straight at the camera with hollow eyes. My sister had never mentioned this picture. We didn't even know it existed. That's when I realized she'd known our family long before we moved into this neighborhood. That's when everything changed. The whisper came again, closer this time. "You're next." I turned around fast, holding up my flashlight, but the doorway was empty. No one there. But the door was fully open now, and footsteps echoed again, this time from deeper inside the house. I wasn't alone, but whoever else was here wasn't just Mrs. Rabia. There was someone else moving behind the walls, watching from the shadows. Then I heard it. A second voice. A child's voice. "Help me." It came from the far corner of the hidden room, from behind a cracked wooden panel. I rushed over, pushing at it, and behind it was a narrow crawl space. The voice came again, clearer this time. "She won't let me go." I didn't know if it was real or if fear was playing tricks on me, but I had to try. I crawled inside, squeezing through the tight space, and found myself in what looked like an old, sealed-off basement room. And in the corner, there was a figure, small, sitting still with its head down. But just as I took a step closer, a loud bang came from upstairs, the sound of something being thrown. Then, silence again. And when I looked back, the small figure was gone. Only the red ribbon remained on the floor, tied in a neat little bow. Whatever I thought I knew about Mrs. Rabia, I was wrong. This wasn't just about her. There was something much older, much darker, hidden in this house. I stood frozen, my heart hammering in my chest. The room around me was suffocating with silence, and the air felt thick with the weight of whatever dark secret Mrs. Rabia had buried here. The red ribbon lay on the floor like a silent warning. I had to find out what had happened to the child, to my sister, to everyone who had come before me. I turned back to the crawl space and pushed harder at the wooden panel. It gave way, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into total darkness. I hesitated, but something inside me pushed me forward. I wasn't leaving without the truth. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I took the first step. The air down there was cold, colder than the rest of the house. It smelled stale, like damp earth, and it was impossible to shake the feeling that something was lurking just out of sight. As I descended, the light flickered, and I saw the basement before me. But this wasn't just an ordinary basement. The walls were lined with strange symbols, carved into the wood, drawn on the concrete. And in the center of the room, beneath a trapdoor, was an old iron cage. Inside, there was nothing, just the rusted remains of chains hanging from the ceiling. I stepped closer, my flashlight trembling as I scanned the room. That's when I saw it. On the far wall, there was a small, tattered piece of cloth hanging from a nail. It looked like a dress, familiar, old, and covered in stains. My stomach turned as I recognized it. It was the same one my sister had worn when she was young. Suddenly, The floor above creaked. The steps were heavy, deliberate. And then I heard Mrs. Rabia's voice, low, soft, but unmistakable. "I told you to stay away." I spun around. She was standing at the top of the stairs, her face pale and cold, her eyes fixed on me. The smile was gone. In its place was something far more terrifying, a look of pure, unblinking malice. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered, taking a step down. "This house doesn't let anyone leave once it has you." I backed away, but before I could move, I heard a loud crash. The trapdoor beneath me burst open, and from the darkness below, something emerged. A figure, pale, emaciated, with wild, empty eyes, crawled from the shadows. The child, my sister. Only she wasn't the same. She was changed. Mrs. Rabia laughed softly as she stepped toward the creature, kneeling beside it like a mother to her child. "She was my first, but not the last." I turned and ran, but the basement door slammed shut behind me. There was no way out, and just as I reached for the window, trying to escape, I heard her final words. "You've always been mine, just like the others." The truth sank in. Mrs. Rabia wasn't the real threat. She was just the keeper. The house was alive. And now, it had me. I smashed against the window, my hands trembling, but it wouldn't budge. The house itself seemed to pulse with energy, as if it were alive, pushing back against me. I could hear Mrs. Rabia's laughter echoing from the basement, low and haunting. The thing that had once been my sister, now a hollow, empty shell, crawled across the floor toward me, its eyes locked onto mine. It wasn't my sister anymore. It was something else entirely. Something that had been twisted by whatever dark force lived in this house. I turned back to the window and threw my shoulder into it again, desperate to escape. This time, the glass cracked. A jagged line spread across the surface, but it still didn't shatter. The house wasn't letting me leave. I was trapped. And I realized then, Mrs. Rabia hadn't been the one keeping me here. The house itself was the monster. The house had been feeding on the children who'd come before, twisting them into something unrecognizable, and it had wanted me all along. I stumbled back, my heart racing as I heard the floor creak above me. The door to the basement opened again. I knew what was coming next, and there was no way to outrun it. As the thing that had been my sister lunged toward me, I had a fleeting thought, a thought that I would never be able to tell anyone the truth. That the house, the evil, wasn't just a story. It was real. And it would keep claiming more victims until someone finally understood the horror. But then, as I braced myself for the worst, a loud crash sounded above. The front door flew open. Someone shouted my name. Adil. His face appeared in the doorway, panic and determination written all over it. "Run!" he screamed. "I found a way out." I didn't hesitate. With one last look at the twisted form of my sister, my heart breaking, I ran toward him, the thing reaching out behind me, but I was already too far. I bolted through the door and into the night, the cold air feeling like the first breath of freedom I had in hours. Adil had found the hidden escape route in the back of the house, a forgotten tunnel that led out of the cursed grounds. We didn't stop running until we were far away, unable to look back. The house loomed in the distance, dark and silent, but I knew it wasn't over. I knew that the evil still lived there, waiting for its next victim. It wasn't just a haunted house. It was a prison, a trap. And no matter how far we ran, it would never let go.